Hello, and welcome to the Creative Confidence series where I want to talk through some of my old projects that sadly I cannot show because I did not film them. But what I can do is I can actually walk through what they are, what was hard about them, and what I learned, as well as some of the cool stuff that happened along the way. So for our first episode of this series, I want to talk about one of the first and biggest builds that I did with my friend, who's a much better woodworker than me. This was my Nelson bench knockoff. Now, the beautiful part about this bench is that there were plans already for it online. I was living at the time in this house I was renting when I was first getting started and in my career and life really. And I had this space by the door that was just perfect for a bench. So I started looking into the designs that I liked. And one of the designs I liked was mid-century modern. Well, naturally, when you type in mid-century modern bench, the Nelson bench shows up. Now, what doesn't show up is the price, which happened to be, I think at the time, probably like $800, roughly. So that was not what I wanted to see. And there weren't really kits for this or anything like that, but there were plans, so that was wonderful. So this is where we got to, and now I want to talk about how we got there. So as you can see, this frame and this aesthetic drew me to this. You have your wonderful legs, which are just really cool. And then you have these slats here, which I really, really, really liked. I was a big fan of the slats and how they overlapped. And then this color is walnut, and I am a sucker for anything walnut. Now this bench is made out of all oak, I believe. Yeah, it's all oak. And this was a pain in the butt to actually get built, but it was a lot of fun. So let's talk about some of the process. So in my naivete, because this was my first major woodworking project with my friend who lived out further away from me, it was very difficult to understand how this was all going to go together. So these here are where we had to all cut every single one of these on the table saw. And then we had to do this crazy glue up. I don't even know if I got a picture of the glue up. These are just progress pictures that I took. And we had to cut every single one of these, and it was like every single, I think there was 3 of these. So these are the 3 pieces that we had to make sure fit around the wood here in this little gap. So in that gap, they need to kind of roughly fit together, because this isn't really put together with screws. This is something that you lap over, you glue it, and that's how it's joined together. So there's no extra screws. Now, have I put screws in it over time? No, I think maybe one time, but that's neither here nor there. But this was very challenging because we had to go slow on the table saw and actually cut all of these and then kind of, not necessarily chisel stuff out, but I think we did use a chisel. And this was our cut off test piece that I think we did initially, along with some of the routing to see what we had to do. So it's a pretty simple standard. It's just a bunch of measurements that kind of put this together. The hardest part was the legs. Talk about that in a minute, but this was pretty standard, and it was just tedious to do this because we didn't have the right routers. We just had to do this by hand. I don't even think we had I think my friend did build a table saw sled, but I don't really remember what happened at the time. But this was one of the things that took, I think, us a day. I think this was like a 2-week project for us because, or 2-day project for us, because we had to let it glue up overnight. So I came out there, maybe it was 2 weeks, but we left it in his garage, I think. And then, as you can see, this is where the rubber met the road. So like I said, you have those pieces, you had to make 4 of those, because basically these here, there's 2 in the middle, 1 on the end, and another one on the end. And here is where it got crazy. So the crazy part about this was you have to clamp it with enough pressure to literally, we had to put so much glue on this. So there's glue everywhere, and that's here, as you can see, this is a little blade mark that we had to kind of make sure that we got rid of. So we had to sand it as well. But this is, I believe, all oak. So this is all oak. And we used the traditional woodworking method of these little kind of cauls to make sure that we put enough pressure on it so it wasn't directly contacting the wood right there, but was hitting this wood, which is sacrificial wood, and making sure it clamps all of this together. So we had to glue all of that. So every single little piece of this is held together with pressure and the glue. And once the glue dries, you know, we just had to clamp it up. So my friend had some long clamps, and we did the best that we could to really make this work. But as you can see, we did get the result. And the beautiful part about this is that it did not cost $800. It cost me probably, I want to say, $300. Still a lot, because I had to buy, you know, wood and everything else. The feet were a whole different story. We had to cut angles. As you can see, if you've ever seen one of these, they have a little angled foot. So it's not just a flat, like that. It's it kind of goes up from here. So it's kind of got this little angle, this slight angle. And then at the top, so it kind of looks like that. That's kind of what the feet look like. And then there's little leveling feet on the bottom of these that I bought for that. But the nice thing about this was it was a fraction of the price. I think that's what I paid for all the oak. And it's made of oak. So it's super, super durable. I still have it in my house today. I don't think I'm gonna get rid of it anytime soon. And we built it, and we just used black stain here, this piano black stain. I think it was wood stain, but we used this piano black stain to essentially get that wood that is the same color as this to look dark as night, which was great. And so that was one of the things that was really fun for us to do. We did have to come back and kind of clamp down a couple pieces here and there to try to get these slats a little bit tighter. And that's what made it the hardest. I think for me, one of the hardest things about this project was getting over the amount of time it would take. It took a while, and it was not something that was relatively easy to do. It was pretty much a labor of love, but it was for a good cause for me, and I loved it, and that's where the bench stayed. The other hard thing about this is you have to have a bunch of clamps. That's what I would say. We probably needed more clamps, and I probably should have bought some, but that would have made this price go up. But we probably needed more clamps, to be honest, because this was very hard to do in a world where you didn't have the infinite budget or just a bunch of clamps just sitting around. So this was difficult, but it was worth it. And I think $300 was around what I spent between the wood and the stain, because this was, it might have been more like $250 if I'm remembering it correctly, but it was around $250, $300. But when you compare it to this, you know, that is way different. And, you know, I used I was really big into, what is that? What is my favorite finish that I've used forever? Danish oil. So I believe this is Danish oil that I used to get that color, the dark walnut, which was really nice. So I'm very happy with this project. I think this being my first big woodworking project that I did back in, I wanna say 2016, it really set the tone for me being able to go out and just try stuff. The nice thing about not knowing what you don't know is that you can just try it, and if it doesn't work, you're not gonna be offended. But there's plenty of plans out there from everybody on YouTube and everything else that can help you be more creative. So my big piece of advice to anybody who wants to actually start, you know, doing projects is pick something that you're actually going to use and make it difficult. Because if you start here, you can build whatever you want. You can do whatever you want. Because if you put in the time up front to learn, it'll always get easier from there. Well, thank you for tuning in. Please comment, like, and subscribe. And we'll see you next time.